I have lived in St. Kitts for more than 3 decades now. My family migrated when I was little. My dad worked here as a police officer, and my mom also worked here as a teacher and a nurse. Now she runs her own little business. I am a lawyer in private practice. I have been. This year will be my 9th year since I graduated law school and started my business. I went into private practice right out of law school. I have been a newspaper editor. I also, with my brother, operate an import company. I'm trying to import stuff from Guyana, and that has been quite an adventure. I studied in the UK and Jamaica, and let's see, I have been appointed a consul since 2017. It's been quite an experience, especially during COVID. COVID was quite dramatic. I sit on 2 corporate boards, the Board of the Development Bank, as well as the National Tripartite Committee, which is basically the Labor Relations Board as under the auspices of the WTO. I represent the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, one of 3. So there are 3 delegates from the Chamber, 3 from the labor unions, and 3 from government. So I do that as well. And I'm a Rotarian. Yes. Ever since I've been here, my parents, especially my mom, has made a point of ensuring that we interact with Guyanese, that we are familiar with the culture that we came from. And so that part of it, didn't change when I became the consul, because I have always participated in whatever association happened to be around at the time, and the different activities that have been done. As I said, we've had a folk festival here. We've had a food festival here that's become pretty much an annual event now. It's run by the Anglican Church. We ever so often have kite flying. We do quite a bit with cricket, and so I've always been a part of that because my parents have always made it a point to participate in community events. Since becoming the consul, what it has done for me personally, sort of opened my eyes to a lot of legal issues in terms of immigration and right to work that I personally didn't experience. I guess because of the way my family came. My father was employed before he left Guyana. So in coming here, we didn't have issues in terms of getting a job and being able to work and that kind of thing. And so a lot of things have changed over the years, and there are issues every so often in terms of especially skilled persons in the trades. That's an area that you tend to find people being a little upset. People are coming to take their jobs, that kind of thing, as opposed to professionals where you don't tend to have that sort of issue. Probably because professionals all study overseas anyway, so they're accustomed to dealing with people from different parts of the region or the world, really. So those employment issues, the CSME skill certificate regime, those are sort of the main things that I, encountered for the first time. What other is the issues as well has to do with, they introduced this thing called school tax, which it was unheard of when we came. So being able to liaise with the ministries and find out what this is, and it's funny the way governments find all kind of different ways to call. If I have to pay money for something, it's basically a tax. But they don't call it a tax because they can't have barriers to children going to school. So they say, it's an admin fee because they have to do extra things, or, those kinds of things. So liaising with the ministries in terms of those kinds of issues. I guess that is what has been different. The people generally think consuls are supposed to be able to do anything. So, and if they have a problem with the landlord, they come and they try to say that's actually not a consular issue. If you come in at the airport and they don't treat you properly, well, that's a consular issue. They have a falling out with their boss. They come. They have a driver's license and they want to get a driver's license. They come and I said, well, actually, no. Did you have one before? If you didn't have one from Guyana, you'd have to actually go through the process of taking a test. And they're like, oh, but they thought that I can give them a driver. No, I can't give a driver's license. So that is, so there is that issue with expectation. St. Kitts is tiny, but because it's a tourism-based economy, in a lot of ways, it's pretty advanced. You can do so much of your banking on your phone. I mean, you don't need to go into a bank to do a wire transfer or to do pay lots of bills. A lot of bills I pay from my phone or from my computer. I never go to any company office and there are lots of offices that don't send physical bills. My internet company has never sent me a physical bill and it never will. They always email them and they expect that you're going to pay them online. There's no reason to go to the office unless something is wrong with your service. So when persons are trying to have their, they become pensionable. They worked in Guyana, then they come out here and work and they become pensionable. And they said, okay, I have a cousin, I have an account, so you can deposit it there. And all the hoops you have to jump through. I mean, some banks are plain, you have to come. So you have to spend, and from here to Guyana, well, right now we have to use AA because we don't have LEAT. So if you don't have a visa, you're in a lot of trouble. I hope the governments do something. If you do not have a visa, traveling to Guyana is extremely difficult because you have to take a plane from here probably to Antigua or St. Martin, but Antigua, St. Martin gives Guyanese a lot of problems if you don't have a US visa, basically. And then you have to find somewhere to get from Antigua to probably Barbados. Maybe then you can catch Cal or into Caribbean. It's a journey. And I remember there was a plane called XL, and you fly from Guyana to St. Kitts in less than 2 hours. So what's happening now? People have come in to ask, how do we get here? You really have to plot. So you get a small plane from here to Antigua, and then you sort out, depending on how Cal is running, if it's running, to get somehow from here to Antigua to Barbados. And then you sort out to try to get a plane from Barbados to Guyana. It's a real nightmare. And especially I've had people who had to travel for emergencies, for funerals, and they don't have the passport expire. They travel documents. And Antigua and Barbados are fine. But I had somebody who made a mistake of going to Trinidad, and oh my goodness, that was horrible. They wouldn't let her out to the airport. They had her in this little room. She went to school in Trinidad. They wouldn't let her family come and see her. It was just ridiculous. And I'm looking at all those Trinidadian companies rushing into Guyana and trying to. And I said, the government really needs to look into what happens in Trinidad. I mean, it took this lady 2.5 days and a lot of aggravation. I had to be in contact with the consul there. She had to go to the airport. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. And she went to Trinidad because she grew up there. Her family migrated. Her grandmother still lives there. She went to school there. So she said, okay, I had to overnight. I can see my granny. No, she had to spend all night in a room in the airport. It was, and for what reason? Oh, they don't know. She ain't got a passport. They don't know. And we actually have a treaty to address that issue. I mean, I've never had an issue with people who go through Antigua and Barbados, but Trinidad, they really need to do something about, Trinidad and how, if it wasn't for Guyanese, Cal would have collapsed a long time, and they really need to do something about Trinidad. So now I tell people, do not go to Trinidad, especially when you're traveling like that, because she was going because her mother was dying. And so all the time she has to be in that room, and that's how she's thinking, will I make it in time to see my mother? And I think the mother, she got electrocuted before the mother died. Horrible. So that's something, I get a chance to speak to the foreign minister. That's something I would definitely talk about. I mean, you'll have to do something about Trinidad. The complaints you get from there are just beyond belief. It used to be Barbados, but now it's Trinidad. The relationship is a very long standing, actually. When I was in sixth form, there was a lecturer at the sixth form college who, he's passed now. He was in his 70s then. And he told me that when he was in school, when he was in Queens, he went to school with people from St. Kitts. And they were able to tell them that their parents knew of people from Guyana who were in St. Kitts from like the 30s and the 40s. Guyanese would come, especially when sugar was really the main economic driver here, to train pan boilers and to do a lot of the mechanics at the factory and so on. So there's actually that relationship of long standing. And when the first premier of St. Kitts died, it was the Guyana Broadcasting Corporation that did the televised coverage of the funeral. So the tapes that are in the archives here was done by the Guyana Broadcasting Corporation. And there has been that movement back and forth, as I said, since then. I've met a lot of people who, whether they were working at CARICOM or at CADI, or they would have studied at GSA. So there is that long-standing connection, actually, among professional people within the government. So there is that history. So Guyanese have been coming here for quite a while, and for lots of reasons. And there has been a lot of Guyanese who've done a lot of work at various levels. I mean, for when we came here, the resident judge was Guyanese. The police commissioner was Guyanese when I was in school. Lots of teachers, lots of nurses. At one point, the DPP was Guyanese. This for a long time. The current Solicitor General is Guyanese. There has always been that sort of level. Guyanese working here in St. Kitts and within the OECS generally. I think at one point, two of the judges on the Court of Appeal here were Guyanese. Justice Blenman, who's now gone to Belize, and Justice Edwards, who retired a few years ago. So there has always been that connection. And when I got called to the bar, I was called by a Guyanese judge here, Justice Ramdani. So there is that connection. Lots of, as I said, civil servants, quite a few. Now, most of the people are tradespeople, especially the building trades. As a tourism economy, there is quite a bit of work in terms of hotel construction. They recently constructed a second pier for cruise ships. So there's quite a bit of that kind of work. And a lot of Guyanese have been able to to get work in those industries. And before they closed the sugar industry in 2005, they had a lot of Guyanese came to cut the cane, but also to work in the factories, to operate the machinery, to do the boiling and that kind of thing. So there's been a lot of that sort of connection. The population is small, the resident population, and so I think we're doing census now, but I think it's going to be probably around 53,000 at the end of it, and there are 4,000 to 5,000 Guyanese. So as a percentage of the population, it's quite a lot. And there is a significant number of those that are Indians, so it's a visible part of the community. Especially where cricket is concerned, the Guyanese are very visible, and also doing very well in CXC. That's another area of visibility. We do a MASH, especially on the smaller island, so that's also been very popular and very, makes the community very visible. And as I said, the food fair. I think because Guyana has such a variety of foods, you find that it has slowly entered the society. When we came here, Ketishans didn't know anything about roti. They didn't know anything about, the paloris and that kind of thing. And now, I think virtually every restaurant you go to, you can buy roti, right? So there has been that sort of integration. You can go into supermarkets here and buy bango. They import that sort of, so there is definitely that, mix. It has broadened the local culture quite a bit. And so there is, definitely that influence. In terms of Guyanese food, every so often there is some Guyanese that tries to bring in dry goods. And so a lot of Guyanese stuff has sort of filtered down. The Indie curry, coconut oil. The coconut oil that I currently have, that I bought in the supermarket, comes from Guyana. You can get 3 counties cake fruits, golden cream. Because of the presence of the population, and you find the merchants, they've been trying to bring in those kinds of things, and people are very willing to try. So that is definitely something that you would find. Now, in terms of that, as you said, the similarities, things like cassava bread, that's actually something that's fairly popular here. I don't see it as much now, but when I was growing up and into the early 2000s, during the Christmas time, you could go to the market and get tea chocolate, which my mother was so shocked when she saw it. And she said, when I was little, my grandmother used to make this, and, so it was very nice to be able to see something. Of course, things like sorrel and black cake and black pudding and sauce and those kinds of things they do here as well. So, there are definitely those similarities. Saltfish and bakes, and as a breakfast, that is very, very popular here as well. So there are definitely those similarities. Eating ground provisions, that's very common here as well. So there are definitely the similarities. I'm definitely looking forward to, better connections where Guyana is concerned, better, professional service from the organizations, from the government entities. And I think there's opportunity here for more to be done in terms of marketing Guyanese stuff. As I think I would have mentioned last week, that hotels here buy craft products from Indonesia. And every time I go and I see them, I'm like, this it's very frustrating to see, because it's not even as good as the stuff you can get in Guyana. And to not be able to get stuff from Guyana, that you can get stuff from Indonesia like every 3 months. I think that in itself is so ridiculous. I really, really hope, that the government does something about that, because it is. You see, what I realize people in Guyana don't understand about like a place like St. Kitts, it's a very high consumption country. And a lot of the things that are available here, ordinarily available, you can probably get like 20 varieties of olive oil or wines or cheeses. We get a lot of imported stuff from Europe, and there is that opportunity for Guyanese to sell, both regular as well as higher value products like timber and craft products and so on. But we don't have the shipping. We don't have an organized, systematic export body. And you're really seeing those deficiencies, when you can compare the kind of things that you can get here, as I said, from Indonesia, from Vietnam, from Thailand. You can import coconut water from Thailand. Those are the kinds of things I would love to be able to see addressed at the government level. Every so often, I ask Rosalinda, it would be lovely to have a trade show. Lovely, but she keeps saying the ministry doesn't have a budget for that. I mean, what's the purpose of a foreign ministry if you don't have a budget for something like, selling your products in markets, And before COVID in 2019, 1 million visitors came to St. Kitts on cruise ships. 1 million visitors. That's just how, that's how dynamic the economy is. And, they shop, and, most of the tourist stuff you get here are made in China. And I'm like, so the stuff that you get in Guyana would make a killing. We just have to organize, and the government has to invest in getting stuff out, getting stuff out to the Caribbean. That should be a market that we are able to take advantage of, because, we have the CET, we have, and as I said, we don't have to translate anything. We don't have to, so it should be that much easier. But there's a lot of work to be done. We can't even. People struggle just to travel. That's something the governments really need to look at. Like, it should be easier to travel to Miami than to travel within the Caribbean.
Join us next Wednesday for another episode of Diaspora Highlight, courtesy of the Diaspora Unit, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. So long.